Welcome to Just Asia, HRC TV's weekly human rights program. These are the headlines. Rohingya boat capsize kills 60. UN report slams Cambodian crackdown in run-up to elections. Moving forward with Asia's Human Rights Charter. Anti-communism rising in Indonesia. 3 urgent appeals from Nepal and Sri Lanka. Welcome to HRC TV's Just Asia. I'm Annie Lin. This week, Just Asia begins with the death of 60 Rohingya in a boat capsized off Bangladesh as they were fleeing violence in Burma. The boat overturned in rough seas late on September 28th. A UN spokesman said 23 people were confirmed dead and 40 more were missing and presumed drowned. Dozens of Rohingya have already died trying to cross into Bangladesh amid a military crackdown in Burma's Rakhine state. Violence erupted in Rakhine on August 25th when Rohingya militants attacked security posts, triggering military crackdown. The Rohingya have been making their way to Bangladesh across the Naf River that forms the border or up the coast, often on rickety boats. International Organization for Migration spokesman Joe Millman said the boat that capsized was carrying about 80 people, according to survivors. Survivors described being at sea all night, having no food, he said. Several children were among the dead. One survivor said that his wife, 2 daughters and a grandson had died. He said they had decided to leave Rakhine after armed Buddhists took their livestock and food. More than 500,000 Rohingya have fled to Bangladesh since then. Just Asia speaks to Adhilur Rahman Khan, Secretary of the Odhikar, regarding the situation of refugees in Bangladesh.
Already 132 Rohingya refugees have died due to boat capsize in Naf River. In only one incident, 60 of them died due to boat capsize recently. What is happening? These people are fleeing from persecution, from genocide. Can't we help them properly? Because already more than 500,000 Rohingya refugees have landed in Bangladesh. What about their food, shelter, their women's protection, their children's kind of medical support? All these are not available yet. And still, the Bangladesh government is in dialogue with the Myanmar regime to send them back. We don't want any dialogue with Myanmar regime without the safety, security, political rights, without being guaranteed for the Rohingya population within Myanmar. We don't want any negotiation without these guarantees. And without these guarantees, if they are sent back, they will face the same persecution. Bangladesh government is yet to take them as refugees. They are saying that these people are intruders from Myanmar. This can't be the case. This is not acceptable. They should be recognized as refugees in Bangladesh. And there should be investigation by the international team about the crimes committed by Myanmar regime, by the generals in Myanmar, and they should be prosecuted under international law. We want that for the refugees, international legal system should work, international legal regime should be functional, and the Rohingya refugees should get their proper rights, their due rights, and they should be recognized as refugees, and they should be given proper respect, their political rights and their due protection.
Next, the UN Special Rapporteur on Cambodia said the government must do more to protect democratic freedoms in the run-up to national elections scheduled for next year. In a report submitted to the UN Human Rights Council in Geneva, Rhona Smith said, "Deterioration of the democratic space and freedom of expression in Cambodia is a primary concern, with many NGOs and human rights defenders subject to threats harassment and arrest. Echoing Smith's remarks, U.S. Representative to the Council, Jason Mack, said the United States remains gravely concerned about the government of Cambodia's ongoing crackdown on opposition parties, independent media, and civil society. Opposition leader Kem Sokha was arrested without a warrant in the capital Phnom Penh on September 3rd, accused of trying to topple the government with backing from Washington. He faces up to 30 years in prison if convicted. According to critics, Hun Sen is intensifying his attacks on political opponents ahead of the 2018 elections, having already closed down radio stations and the independent English language Cambodia Daily. In preparation for the 20th anniversary of the 1998 Asian Human Rights Charter, rights groups and activists are discussing how to move forward and ensure the genuine realization of people's rights in Asia. The 1998 Charter was aimed at changing how human rights work was conducted in developing countries. In particular, the aim was to understand and improve the effective institutions and systems of justice required for human rights implementation. New approaches to human rights fact-finding, advocacy and monitoring are needed, all of which should be directed towards improved knowledge of justice systems. Only then can human rights work have practical implications for ordinary people. Just Asia speaks to Basil Fernando, HRIC's Director for Policy and Program Development, for details.
In 1998, in May, we declared the Asian Charter of Human Rights, which was an attempt to develop the articulation of problems relating to implementation of rights in the Asian region. Emphasis of that charter was that the basic institutions of policing, prosecution, judiciary, custodial institutions are so backward in these countries, and they themselves in fact are acting in obstruction to development of rights. So we wanted to develop our attention to that problem so that more people will pay attention to that problem and try to discuss solutions and find ways to solve that. Now, 19 years after that, we have taken that message to many countries, to many persons in practical ways. Huge amount of documentation has been collected on the manner in which rights are violated and the institutions fail to protect the people's rights. With all these work that is done, we have come to a stage where we could, in a more forceful way, bring some of the lessons we have learned within the last 20 years to a wider world, particularly to the developed countries' attention, that there is something missing in the global discourse on human rights. It is that there is a lack of knowledge of the realities of the way the institutions function or do not function in many of the countries, and as a result, the real practical possibility of implementation of rights do not exist. So, these institutional problems should be resolved if we are to improve the respect for rights. On the 20th year of the Asian Charter, we will have a declaration within which we will try to re-articulate these problems. It will be done by way of 3 supplementary documents to the Asian Charter. One is the right to justice, talking about the problems that we talked about just now, institutional development to enable the enjoyment of rights. Second, right to peace, in a situation where peace is very much under threat in the world now. The third is the right to culture, which is again a major issue for people, particularly in the developing countries, but also for the world at large, which is something that has not received adequate attention. So that these documents will be first prepared by people who are engaged in this work for a long time. Then it will be circulated for discussion. After many views have been received, a drafting committee will again sit and draft these declarations. Then it will be submitted for signature of as many persons as possible, and then finally in a public ceremony it will be declared in Gwangju city once again on the 20th anniversary of the Asian Charter.
Moving to Indonesia, the country is seeing a rise in anti-communist phobia and rhetoric, with a massive protest in Jakarta on September 29th. Held by anti-communist groups and opposition supporters against the communist ideology, the protest was termed 29/9. The protest followed the brutal attack on the offices of the Indonesian Legal Aid Foundation, YLBHI, and Jakarta Legal Aid between 16 and 17 September 2017. These circumstances are weakening the efforts of victims and families of the 1965-66 massacre to seek justice. They now face increased difficulties and obstacles to voice their hopes and desires. According to the investigation report of the National Commission on Human Rights, Comnas AJM, 500,000 people accused of being Communist Party members were killed between 1965 to 67. Thousands more were detained without trial in Buru Island and other detention camps. The investigation report further stated that the Command for the Restoration of Security and Order, COPCAMTIP, which existed between 1977 to 78, must also be investigated and prosecuted under the Human Rights Court law. More than 5 years since the Human Rights Commission report has been submitted to the Attorney General for further investigation, nothing has been done. In fact, during the past 2 years, Indonesia's present Attorney General publicly stated that the case should be brought to a reconciliation mechanism rather than the Human Rights Court. Unfortunately, Indonesia does not yet have a law on the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. While 1965 to 66 victims are now passing away without justice, the perpetrators remain free and enjoy impunity.
I think the Reconciliation Commissions, if we take this role, I think this will take a long sessions or long time. So I think Mr. Jokowi should just launch the what so called the letter of decree, to publish the reconciliation letter as a decree that Jokowi should make what so called to make the decree of reconciliations and the way of solving out the 1965 case or other human rights violations. By doing this, and then the other step, Mr. Jokowi should make what you call the special commissions, to carry out this problem.
Finally, the Urgent Appeals Weekly features 3 cases from Nepal and Sri Lanka. In Nepal, 55-year-old Mrs. Rajkumari Upadhyaya was accused of being a witch. She was beaten by her neighbors, including an armed police force constable. Rajkumari is an active women's rights activist. While a police complaint has been filed, the police are reluctant to take action due to the involvement of an AFP constable. 2 cases of police abuse surfaced in Sri Lanka. In the first case, a 24-year-old resident of Kantale Police Division was illegally arrested and detained at the police station. He was produced before the Kantale magistrate charged with participating in a protest against the police, but he refuted the accusation. In the second case, Mr. Magoda was arrested on September 18th and detained in a cell overnight. In the early hours of the next day, his dead body was found lying in the cell. The officer in charge, OIC, of the station was immediately transferred through the intervention of the Inspector General of Police, IGP. However, no open, prompt, efficient and full investigation has been carried out into the killing of the deceased. That is all for this episode of Just Asia. For more on these and other issues, please visit www.humanrights.asia or www.alrc.asia/justasia. Thank you for watching and see you next week.